I think it's very hard to understand for me and for a lot of the listeners that have never gone through something like that, what you actually go through if you fear for your own life. Like I heard a lot of stories, and I might could talk about it, but like actually being in the moment, just I think that feels very different.
Yeah, it's so true. And, I made, a lot of praying, a lot of discussions with God. And, maybe that was his way of being like, hey, you need to get your priorities in order. You're focusing on the wrong things. Look at what's most important. And, I don't know. I still don't know, but you really start to have some deep introspection, and you start looking back at yourself too, like, what have I done with my life? Like, what if this is the end? Did I just waste, I think I was 40 at the time. Did I waste 39 years of my life? Like, what am I doing here? And um I will say it absolutely grounded me. I way more appreciative, way more grateful for the things we have and the people around me, and it absolutely puts a new lens on life that you almost, we can talk about this, we can say we experience these things, but until you really live it, it's almost inexplicable to someone who hasn't had that experience. So
I think so too. Um, in that moment, or like after that moment, did you change something of like diet or like anything that you like, or like work related stuff, like relationships, like anything?
no, I mean, I was on a pretty strict carnivore diet as it was. I did notice that I felt better the more I adhered to like strict carnivore. Like if I mixed in some vegetables or any sugar or something, that would really make things bad. So I went like super, super hardcore on that front. So I kind of like tripled down on what I had already been doing. Um, but I absolutely, I wouldn't say I changed anything per se in necessarily what I was doing or the like the way I lived, but my attitude and my focus on things completely changed. Like my priorities in life, work went way down the list. I was like, work is so less important compared to time with my family, time with my wife, time hopefully with our son, or we didn't know it was a son at the time, but and that's what really matters. So I really shifted the priorities of my life around, and then I just had just a newfound appreciation and gratitude for life, and sort of, I don't want to say like anger or uh, being upset or black pilled or, whatever you want to call it, sort of just the negative, the portion of life I looked at negatively, it basically completely went away. It's like, you know, we're, we're not in a war torn zone. We're not starving. I mean, like all these things are, really just my framing of how thankful I am for everything I have really shifted. And honestly, it's made it way healthier. Like I feel like I'm much calmer, much more relaxed. I don't get as easily agitated. I get, I have much more patience. Just having gone through that.
So much of health starts in the mind, I think. If I think if I'm not sure about that. Like I haven't researched also deeply, but I have that weird feeling that if you have the right mindset and if you have the right mind towards things, that illnesses and sicknesses don't come your way that easily. Obviously, like there are things that will come your way no matter what you think. And diet is a huge part of it. Movement is a huge part of it. And like there are a lot of different factors towards that. But a lot of it, I think, is just like in your mind. And there's those studies where you can think your way to a sickness. It's like if you think long and hard enough, at some point your head actually will have a headache if you really want the headache. And so I think this is in your story such a nice one, because you're like, you cannot put the finger on like what it actually was, but I think the mind shift, there's like this mind going on, and like all the bad things are vanished from the mind. I think this clears out your life, and all of a sudden, like especially if it's heart related,
Yeah.
where a lot of like unconscious stress can come in. Like like I'm not a doctor, but I would guess that had a huge impact on improving your overall health.
I yeah, I don't doubt there was, once I had that sort of psychological reframing of everything, yeah, I mean, things did get better. How much that contributed to it, how much of it was just something my body needed to clear up, or, we'll never know. But certainly when I did have that sort of mindset, when I hit, rock bottom, for lack of a better term, and then kind of just like, I kind of gave up. I kind of was like, okay, it is what it is at this point. If I'm gonna, be walking down the street and, you know, have a heart attack and fall over at some point, like, you know, and I didn't, just speaking personally, I didn't take the vaccine or anything like that. And so I was like, it's not, I didn't take any drugs. I didn't take any, pharmaceutical anything. And so it was like, I know it's not that. So what could it be? I have no idea. And so, but yeah, it was kind of at that point where I just kind of gave up and was like, all right, God, I, I'm out, like, I don't know what more you want from me. Like, if this is my time, it's my time. And it's funny you say that. I never even really thought about it, but that is kind of the point where like things did start turning around, where it was just like, okay, I just have to accept fate. And that is kind of when the trajectory started going the other way. So
There is a very famous Bitcoin in the German speaking community that you might not know because he's only doing in German, and it's Roman Reha, the block trainer. And he already had a YouTube channel. He already had his Bitcoin channel on Bitcoin, basically, when he was diagnosed with many different sicknesses and illnesses, where all the doctors said like, oh yeah, like you might have like 3 months left to live. And I had his story on the podcast, and he's like the number one, in my opinion, YouTuber, live streamer on Bitcoin in the German speaking community, and maybe even beyond that. He only does it in German, but he has, what is it, over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Not a lot of Bitcoiners worldwide can can beat that. Maybe like beat this Sessions, Press and Pitch, like a few others that might be bigger than that, and he does only in German. And I talked with him, and he mentioned he did a few things when he was diagnosed with like, oh yeah, like you might have like 3 months left to live with all your like sicknesses. He had like autoimmune immune disease. He had sicknesses where like his muscles were eating away, so he just like got less muscles over time, like many
muscular
different
dystrophy. Yeah.
yeah, like I couldn't even count them all. He started quitting his job right away. He married the girlfriend that he had at the time that he loved. And he started taking his YouTube channel, his passion was just like a passion project, all of a sudden very serious. And this is now like 4 or 5 years ago, and he still lives, and he's very, very healthy. He went really deep down the rabbit hole of food. He still enjoys nice food, for example, like pizza, and he makes that example. But he does everything himself, like everything from the pizza, like the dough and everything. Like he does it himself. Like if he makes pasta, he makes the pasta himself and all of that. He works out every day in the gym for himself. Like he looks super pumped and super healthy also. I'm just saying that because this is your story reminded me a little bit of his. Maybe with him like being a little bit more traumatic even, and with like actually like, oh yeah, you have that disease and like you actually probably won't make it, like certified from a doctor, and like the doctor were wrong. And I'm telling you this because I think a lot of that just starts in the freaking mind of like, how do you take life? We know like how stress is evolved. There's like good stress and there's bad stress. And like good stress is like the kind of the proof of work that you're getting into, and the bad stress is kind of like you doing proof of work for someone else that you actually don't really want to do. Sorry for my long tangent now, but I think it's
No,
a
I love
huge story.
I love it. And now you got my mind thinking, it's just a lot of the stuff that's been going on the last couple of years. Like, to me, it's clear that there's clearly like a spiritual battle of good and evil. And there always has been. And I've always believed in good versus evil. But it just, for whatever reason, seems even more prominent in the last few years. It almost seems like we're like reaching an apex, like a world war in the spiritual realm. And to your point about the psychology and thing, there's just so much more to life that I feel like we've been. It's like, get in the public school, science explains everything. Stop asking questions. If we can't put an equation on it, then it's not real. And it's like, I think there is so much more to life, and you know, frequencies and so many things we don't understand, or has been lost throughout history that cultures used to understand, and when we don't anymore. And there's just so much more than like some guy in a lab coat figured something out in a Erlenmeyer flask in a beaker, and that's the answer to everything. Like, there's just so much more.
I 100% agree. Did through this whole process your view on Bitcoin change at all? Like, did you look differently on Bitcoin through that like experience?
It's funny. It almost I already, Bitcoiner, super low time preference, in this for the future. The Bitcoin I have is for me and my wife to survive, and my kids to thrive, and my kids to thrive. This is building generational wealth in the family. And I took almost an even longer point of view, an even lower time preference view, that like, okay, here's what I stacked for my family. And my wife, who's a Bitcoiner as well, she's got her cold card and connects to the node, and she knows how to hits up Sparrow, knows how to do everything. And it's like, I know it'll be in good hands. And it's like, this will kind of be the legacy I left behind, that like I set my family up for generations to come, with what I provided them. And it was like, it was a moment of seeing Bitcoin for, have you ever heard of the book Die with Zero?
No.
Okay, so it's a book. It was kind of popular in the US. It's basically like the boomer anthem, like go to the grave with nothing, like spend it all. And I should preface it, like there was some good advice in there, like, hey, if you want to give money to your kids, give it to them when they're 30, not when they're 50. It's going to do a lot more good. And so I don't want to completely poo-poo the book, but it was kind of like, hey, spend everything now, have a good time, do what you want to do. If you want to give money to charity, give it away now, blah, blah, blah. It was an interesting kind of thought-provoking book, but it was basically like, don't leave anything behind. And I sort of took the frame of like, I want to leave as much as I can behind, as opposed to sort of living for me and for the now and my family, and like this sort of make our life better now. And then there is an element, you should do that, and you shouldn't be sleeping on a floor or freezing in the winter, things like that. But you should also have like the longest term view possible. Like, how far is your family tree going to go, and then make sure that that person has some Bitcoin. And so it like extended my view even of Bitcoin being I think Michael Saylor calls it 1,000-year money. I mean, it could be a 10,000-year money. We don't know. So
thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.